I'm Sarah Lebner from Cooey Architecture. I specialise in regional, energy-efficient, low-carbon homes that are an absolute joy to live in, and this channel is about sharing some of that knowledge with you. This is a battery and home electrification chat with Sarah Aubrey from Electrify This.
Sarah Aubrey from Electrify This. You and I have been keenly following each other and learning from one another for a little while now. And I know there are some burning questions that our clients and homeowners who follow us want to know about where home batteries are currently at. So thank you so much for joining me today for a quick chat.
My absolute pleasure. And also, I'm not an expert on anything. I am only a curious consumer, so I can only speak from my own experience of my own battery. So we'll just start there.
Yeah, I don't know. I think you've got a lot more expertise than what you've let on. And your insight going through the process, I think, is actually really valuable, because I find often as soon as we get technical in this industry, the information is sort of leapfrogged ahead and people can't connect those early dots. So I think it's really valuable. And I reached out mainly because I guess the past 10 years or so, we've been sort of saying to people, and everyone's been saying, look, batteries aren't quite there yet. Don't really get one. And of course, everyone knows that their feed-in tariffs are sort of non-existent these days. But I feel like maybe we're at the turning point where maybe batteries are there. Is that how you're feeling for households?
I think we've well and truly gone round that corner, and we're now onto the whole new trajectory of batteries being the essential part of the picture. And then cars will be part of that as well, as the big batteries on wheels with vehicle to grid. But I think there's all this, well, very clearly there's been all this pent up demand, right? What are we up to? 80,000 batteries or something, some mad number. And I think people have been holding off, haven't they? Because it was like, oh, they're just a little bit too expensive. I'll wait until they come down in price. And we are now at that point. Batteries are 30% cheaper. That is amazing. And so I think actually what's happening is people are, instead of opting for, say, a 16 kilowatt hour battery, I actually asked Will Hall from SIG Energy, he's the managing director, and I asked him what's the kind of average size people are putting in. And it's around that 24, 28 kilowatt hours. So I think what people are doing is, for the price of what they would have gotten a 16 for, they're now opting to get a bigger battery. And that will really see them through that crucial winter period, because that's really what those batteries are for, aren't they? They're to see us through that big winter crunch. You want that battery to sort of match what you're consuming during the day in winter, but then in summer you're just banking all that extra solar, and spring and autumn in particular, and then all your solar obviously in winter. But yeah, you're right, the feed-in tariff is just like meh. So you've got to, I think you've got to use what you're producing now.
Yeah, absolutely. I know what you're saying there. And we use the Powerhouse app now, which has these great graphics for people on what their house is using. And that graph looks like this through the year with that peak in the middle, and what their house is generating. And that graph looks like this. So we're always trying to balance getting it to cost effectively, the most energy efficient point, where we sort of find a 6 kilowatt system on our projects with a battery can get them through that winter point. And it's been great watching the conversation change on this, because 10 years ago we did solar hot water systems on roofs. Now we're using heat pumps, and they're almost using the same amount of grid energy. But what I love about a heat pump is that it's being just as efficient at night when it's cloudy, during the cold period. So we've really had that change in mindset of when are we making it, when we're using it, which leads to that question about the feed-in tariffs. Everyone knows they're not making money from their solar anymore the traditional way. People feel like they're just doing it to cover themselves and do the right thing. But I've been so fascinated watching your journey with this thing called the wholesale market, which I think people have no idea about. Please tell us all about that.
Okay, so I am with, and this is no affiliation with them, Amber Electric. So they are the wholesale market, or they give us the wholesale prices. They don't put anything on top of that. The only thing you pay is $25 a month membership. So you are getting access to the proper wholesale market prices. And this is the thing that's blown my mind, is in the middle of the day, let's have a look what the wholesale price is right now, shall we? Let's have a look and see what they are. All right, so right now, here's a for you to see. That's 7 cents, if you can see that properly.
Yeah.
7 cents a kilowatt hour. It's 83% renewables in the grid. And over the next hour, it'll be around 6 cents, 5 cents. They measure it in 5-minute intervals. So you can really see ahead what's going on. Because I've only got a 4.7 kilowatt solar array, that's not enough to cover or fill my now giant-sized 48 kilowatt hour SIG Energy battery. We buy in the middle of the day from the grid when it's cheap like that. And it's not like that all year round. It's probably around anywhere between kind of 16 and even 22 cents in winter, or a really, really bad day in terms of weather. But I just fill the battery with that and then power the house basically from 3 o'clock in the afternoon. The automation kicks in, which is Amber's smart shift. So it's like a VPP, a virtual power plant, but I can take control. And this is the thing that makes Amber different, is that I can intervene at any time. I can control the battery, I can dispatch, and I can charge, and I can preserve up to 2 hours, and then I could do it again for another 2 hours. And I just love that someone else isn't, well, they are controlling my battery, but I could even just turn that off and fully automate it if I wanted to with my own home automation. So I like the idea that I'm being rewarded potentially, which I have been with Amber. They have price spikes. So what's interesting is at certain times in May, for example, I joined in March, there were about 3 price spikes and the price went up to over $20 a kilowatt hour.
Wow.
Now, you wouldn't want to just have solar because you'd be like, oh my God, turn everything off. But if you've got a battery and you've got a pretty big battery and you've got stuff to spare, you dispatch. I made $250 in one night and $200 in another night. And after being with Amber for 6 months, I'm in credit $1,000 and I haven't had a bill since I joined them. That's the big thing, right? So you've got access to those cheap prices. You charge when the grid is primarily clean in the middle of the day, and use it for later, and also store all my solar. And you know, I was getting so little for my feed-in tariff, it just shrank and shrank and shrank over the years anyway. I see that as a much better use of that solar to use what I'm generating and not overwhelming the grid as well, because we're putting all that solar into the grid in the middle of the day. The grid is becoming unstable from it. I was so shocked when I discovered, when I've been speaking to Ausgrid, how much of our solar is curtailed and wasted, which just drives me crazy. And I'm like, well, why wouldn't I soak that up? And I can plug a car in the middle of the day and pay 8 cents a kilowatt hour. Like, it's a no-brainer. So I just don't know that I could ever go back to paying those full, just standard tariffs with a regular retailer. And I think wholesale prices are the future, but I think you need to reward customers that if I go and spend money on a battery and I'm feeding solar and renewables into the grid at the critical time when it's needed, I think you need to reward customers for that, because I went and spent the money on a battery.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love the idea. It sounds like it's getting the free market to essentially stabilize all those production and use peaks that we have, right? It's getting individuals, it's a win-win for everyone. You're getting the power benefit and making that money, but it's also solving this massive hard problem that we thought we had about how do we bring renewables into the grid.
Yeah. And it means also people like me aren't turning everything on at 6 p.m. So I'm taking that pressure off the grid as well. So I can feed in if I want to, but yeah, my house, as I said, it's powering itself from about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Smart shift just kicks in because I'm on a time of use tariff. And basically the house is powering itself until about 10:30 the next day. It could go for a couple of days at least, or longer with the battery I have. And we'll start banking the solar once the sun comes up. And then if I want to charge it again in the middle of the day and top it up, I can. But I foresee this is the future. And then, of course, beyond that, it might not be just home batteries. It will be vehicle to grid with those even bigger batteries on wheels in your driveway that you could just plug in if you're home by 6 p.m. and make money from your car, we're so close to that now. It's actually happening in some places. The F-150 Lightning was the first vehicle to be approved that you could do that and it wouldn't void the battery warranty. So that's probably the only thing that's really holding it back, is just working out with the car makers that the battery is going to be okay, which actually I was speaking to Brad Trethaway at Essential Energy, and he was like, it puts so much less stress on the battery because they've done lots of testing with this. You think about when you accelerate in an electric car, the stress that puts on a battery when you do it and brake. No, it's very gentle what you're doing to that battery when you're feeding from your house into the grid or vice versa. So I think we're just like so close now to that becoming the norm, but we just got to make those chargers cheaper, the vehicle to grid chargers cheaper, and then you're going to have home batteries as well as cars just supporting the grid with all that renewable energy. It's going to be amazing.
Amazing. So do you need a special battery to do this?
I think
Wholesale.
Amber probably has a certain types of batteries, like models, brands. I would check before you try and join them. There's a lot of info. There's actually a really good Facebook group, an Amber users group, that you can go in and ask the question. But I know, for example, Sig Energy is on there, Tesla's on there. A lot of them are. But yeah, I just check that particular battery is supported. It's just amazing. It just blows my mind that this is a thing. And if you just expanded that idea and went, imagine if we even just put small batteries on people's homes. So the other option is you don't necessarily need a giant battery. You could just put a small battery on your home and not even be on a VPP and feed it into the grid. You could just support your own house. You could just spend just a few $1,000s and have maybe a 10 kilowatt hour battery, and again, be self-sufficient from that 3 p.m. so you avoid those peak or demand tariffs. And then you bank all your solar. So that's another option. You don't have to get a giant battery. There are different options and price points for people, but that would be like paying your bills in advance. And you could get a battery for like $5,000.
Yeah, right. The prices have really come down, haven't they?
Yeah, they have. Yeah.
You mentioned vehicles, and you know a lot about electric vehicles as well. And a lot of our clients and homeowners, they're at that point where they know they're probably going to get an electric vehicle. They're not quite there yet. They want to know what to include in their new build or their renovation as they're updating everything. What insight do you have about setting up provision for future EV charging?
It depends if you've got single phase or 3-phase. So just put the wiring in place into your garage or your carport so that when you want to get a charger, whether it be a 22 kilowatt charger, which is what you would get for 3-phase, or a 7 kilowatt charger for single phase, or whether you do want to do vehicle to grid, do a little bit of research and just put the wiring in place so that when you get an EV, you can then get whatever charger you want. So it'll just save you a bit of money in the long run, I reckon.
Yeah. Great.
Yeah. I mean, there are different types of chargers as well. Let's say you're not doing vehicle to grid at this point. If you're just doing charging now, there are generally 2 types of chargers. Not to be rude to them, there's a smart charger and a dumb charger. So a dumb charger, no offense to the dumb chargers of the world, are literally just plug and play. And you could probably control it by scheduling your charging, or if you've got an app for your car, you'd be able to just go charge and stop. It's very, very simple. And then the smart chargers, they can utilize, say, just your solar. So you just plug it in the middle of the day, and it's not going to charge from the grid. It'll or it'll know, like my Omi charger, for example, if you put in the tariff, if you're on just with a standard retailer, you can put in who you're with, and it will know when to charge the car when it's cheapest, and know that you want it at 80% by 8 a.m. the next morning. It will know when to charge the car, and it will have it there for you at 80% the next day. So they cost a bit more, but if you want to have those smarts, then you can do that.
Yeah. Where we get into sort of life cycle carbon a lot, and I know, just being in this space, you are trolled daily by battery haters.
And EV haters and renewable haters. And yeah.
So how do you dispel that one that comes up again and again, that the embodied energy and the material that's needed to make all these batteries is not sustainable, and we can't manage it, blah 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 blah. Yes.
Do you know what I think? I mean, my account's not even been going for 2 years, and I think what I have learned is not to pander to that, because this is just bots. They're just putting that out there, and if you respond to their comment, you're actually boosting their comment. It's the first thing they see on Facebook because it's got lots of responses. My tactic is to not mention the myth. I make posts saying, hey, did you know it only takes about 20,000 kilometers to pay off the carbon footprint of an electric vehicle in its manufacturing phase. So I do that. So then they're chasing you going, oh, but it's so much more than electric, than a petrol car and blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? So they're chasing you and they're boosting your content. Don't chase them. They let them chase you. That's my advice. And they love to focus on the production costs. And that's the thing I always point out. When you actually take into account the lifetime emissions of that vehicle, well, electric cars are about 73% cleaner. Like they're just far and away. As soon as you've got that car on the road, it's not putting out tailpipe emissions, which cost taxpayers billions of dollars in health costs and deaths. And it's just, once it hits 20,000 Ks, it's it's just clean. You think about the definition of madness. I've actually made a post about this, and I'll post about it, because I was like, the definition of madness is the idea that you imagine extract oil, transport it, refine it, all of the energy that goes into that, right? And the pollution. Then you have to transport it and then bring it by ship all the way to Australia, then transport it from there to the Bowser to be burnt once. That is and over 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 and repeat, right? That is the definition of madness. And people go, but electric cars need to come here by ship. And I'm like, yeah, but one time. You make that battery one time. Over 60% of Australian EV drivers charge from their rooftop solar. And no matter how you refuel that or recharge that car in Australia, it's being recharged by Australian-made domestic energy, domestic local energy. So it's like I constantly go, oh, how is it charged? I'm like, well, don't you support Australian jobs? Don't you support coal? Don't you think? Don't you support Australia? That's very un-Australian. So just turn it on them and go, sure, mate, sure. Yeah. And our grid isn't 100% dirty, of course. It's becoming cleaner and cleaner and cleaner. Yeah. So it's a very disingenuous thing to focus on those production emissions if you just turn the camera onto fossil cars and actually have a bit of a look. It's a way of going, look over here, don't look here, which is way worse. And I just think it's disingenuous.
And there's so many overlaps too between houses as well. But I know that electric cars are the one people love to hate at the moment because they're the new thing. But we're getting quite into life cycle carbon assessment in our houses and looking at exactly how much are the solar panels contributing to that footprint. Similarly with other materials we use for, I won't go into specifics, but say we're using a certain window material and people say, well, making that material is very carbon intensive and yada, yada. But we've actually looked at the difference that makes to the performance of the house and how it offsets over its lifetime. And so there's a much bigger picture there. And yes, by and large, massively, the life cycle carbon footprint is far more positive because of those things, and very, very quickly paid off and then clean and in comparison to the alternatives.
Are you seeing a lot more people wanting to retrofit their homes versus tear it down and build again?
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to lead a retrofit revolution, and that's what we need. And that's why I just launched the KUI Retrofit resource, because it's really hard for people to access that kind of advice where, I'm sure they'd love us to come in and give them custom advice, but the budget that they have to spend just doesn't really make sense for getting that kind of one-on-one expert custom design. So we have distilled that into everything we've learnt into one resource. Thank you for mentioning it. So that's there that everyone can get. And it has been quite popular. I think people are catching on to realise there's so much they can do at a low budget.
I think they're hungry for knowledge. Like, this is the thing that I've noticed. I get so many people messaging me and thanking me because they were just so desperate to learn about, or just say they want to buy an electric car. They're looking everywhere for information. And I just distill it down to a very brief, basic, practical, like, I look at a car like a consumer. I don't look at it like a traditional car reviewer. I don't focus on kilowatt hour battery sizes and Newton meters of torque. I look at practical things like space. Does the bottle of wine fit there if I need to transport it home? Obviously, all the important stuff, and a bit of humor, right? But it's a quick way for people to go, oh, I like the look of that. Okay, I'll go test drive that one. No, I don't like that one. Yes, well, I like that one too. So I've really noticed, particularly women, age sort of 35 to 55, have really appreciated that I come from a place of people potentially knowing nothing about electric cars. I never assume, because there's always going to be people learning in this space. And I want to do more of that, certainly, to sort of help people across the line how to charge it and not feel intimidated by it. But I think it's important to share that knowledge. And I've had so many people say, thank you so much. We just bought X, Y, and Z car and we love it. And, we're so happy and we bought it on your recommendation. I'm like, excellent, great. But, and same with house stuff. You know, with the battery, for example, people are like, oh, what about this battery? And I said, well, look, I'm not paid to do this. I'm just a consumer. I can only tell you about my own experience with my own battery. I'm really happy with it. And actually, I bought that because Brad Trethewey at Essential Energy researches batteries and tests them, and he got that for his house. And I went, well, I'm getting that battery. He did all the research for me, and he's the expert. So I'm not selling something. So I kind of like that. I think I have people's trust, and I think people are very hungry for trusted voices in this space, because it's a big expense, right? There are cowboys in the solar industry and potentially in the battery industry, and people are spending a lot of money, and you don't want to get ripped off. You don't want to do something wrong. So that your retrofit, for example, is so useful, because these are big things you have to do to your house. Some are small things, but some could be potentially expensive. So you want to get it right.
And the thing I find is three things, as you said. It's expensive, and it's hard to find the advice, and things are changing so quickly. But the big one that I try and hit is context. There's so much advice out there, but people who are at a certain budget context might latch on to advice that's really better suited to someone who are in a different budget bracket. So I think that's why a lot of what we're doing, people can identify with the context that you're sitting in, and they can relate to that, and then that's the information that's right for them.
And there's a lot of people that just want to do something. They do actually want to contribute and make a difference and reduce their bills, but also do, they've got kids and they want to just put things in place for their future. I think people want to take some kind of control. And I think it's a nice way to let them feel like they're contributing in some way.
Yeah, that's a really nice spot to end. I wanted to finish by asking you, Sarah, what are you excited about?
What am I excited about? I'm excited about vehicle to grid. I'm excited to see where this battery revolution goes. I'm excited to see Australia pushing forward and energy policy no longer being a political football. I think we've got a while for that to happen, but I feel like Australians want and are now seeing us moving forward. I'd love to see all of this anti-renewable stuff disappear. I'd like to see more wind going up so that we can really support the system. But I think the tide is turning, that it doesn't matter how much the fossil fuel industry and loud and noisy dark money groups like Advance or politicians that are getting money from the fossil fuel industry, it doesn't matter how loud they are. It's not working. People are genuinely moving forward, and they're seeing the results of installing solar and a battery and electrifying their house, and they're saving money and buying an electric car and saving so much money in fuel costs. And I think you can't stop that. And the way that this is changing, it's not even people like us talking about this stuff. It's they do it, and then they talk to their neighbors and they talk to their friends, and they take them for a ride in their car, or they bring them over to their house and they talk about how much money they're saving. You can't stop that disruption. It's already happening. You can't put disruption back in its little box. It's happening. Too bad. So sad. And so those people either get on board and their profits are going to be affected, but the way forward, you can't stop it. The wave is happening, and I'm excited about that. And I think watch this space.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for joining us, Sarah. And where can people follow you?
You can follow me with my Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and Facebook on Electrify This.
Great. Thanks for your time, Sarah.
Thanks, Sarah.
Please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you.